The objective of this presentation is to introduce you to the FDOT Civil 3D survey database and point and figure grouping. What we're going to do is bring an XML that was created in Casey, a 1.2 Land XML file that was created in Casey, and import it into the Civil 3D and create a survey database. First thing I want to show you is what a survey database looks like. And this is Windows Explorer. And this is a typical FDOT project directory structure. If you look down under Survey, you'll see a set of files. What makes up the Civil 3D database is the survey.sdbx file right here and the survey.sdxx file. Those two files together are what create a survey database in Civil 3D, and if they need to be transferred to someone else, those are the two files that would need to be moved. So what is a survey database? In Civil 3D, you have a tool space, and one of the tabs on the tool space is right here. It's the Survey tab I've got shown up. To create a survey database, we need to first click some of the survey user settings right here and set a couple of configurations. Right now I have it set to FDOT 2014 database settings file. We have the option of choosing projections. The original 2014 Civil 3D that came out had a fault in it, and the fault was that if you preset the projections, it would crash the Civil 3D database. So using any of these three, the east, north, or west zone, would actually crash the Civil 3D database when you tried to create it. So we at DOT created the FDOT 2014 database settings with no projections set. What this meant was that when you created the survey database, you had to come back and set the projection manually in the survey database. However, Autodesk has released, or it's a service pack 2, and it corrected this issue. So I'm going to set it to our north zone, and also be aware, that's right here, also be aware that the current figure prefix database settings, FDOT, and the figure styles need to be set to FDOT figure styles right here. Once your database settings are set, you can create the survey database. The first thing you want to do is you want to right click on the survey database and set the working folder. And right now I have a project set up, 413-485-15201, also known as the Unnamed Creek Bridge Survey Project. So if you look down in the directory structure, you'll find a folder called Survey, and under it is an ENG data. Right at this moment, that folder is empty. So I'm going to set the working folder, and I'm going to make a new local survey database. Normally I use the first 7 digits of the FPID number for my survey database, but you can name it anything you want. So 413-4851 is going to be the new survey database. Once it's created, you'll see a set of events, queries, networks, groups, figures, figure groups, survey points, and survey point groups listed underneath the survey database. Figures and figure groups, survey points, and survey point groups are the focus of this presentation. Any import event will show up under the import events. Be aware that the survey database can be opened and closed, and when you turn off your computer and you open it, you turn it back on and pull up Civil 3D, this database will actually be closed. So you can close it, it'll look like this. It won't be highlighted anymore. In order to open it for edit and use, you simply right click on it, say open for edit, and again it will be highlighted. Okay, if a projection was not set, you'll need to go down to the Edit Survey Database Settings and set it here manually. And you can see it right now, the coordinate zone is not set in it. So I'm going to set it through the Select Coordinate Zone dialog box. I'm going to go down to Florida, USA, Florida, and I'm going to use NAD 83 Florida State Plane North Zone US foot and say OK. All the other settings are preset, so you won't have to worry about those. Say OK, and this creates our database. To import data into a Civil 3 database, we have a couple of options here. One is the Import Survey Data tool, and it's a wizard, and the other is to import a Survey Land XML directly. I'm going to show you the Import Survey Data wizard. Pull it up, and we're specifying a database. Since this is the one, we can say next. The data source is a Land XML. There are some options. You can import a point file or points from a drawing or from a fieldbook file. I'll say, then I have to specify and I have to select the file to be imported. Under my Casey projects, I have a file created 4134851.xml. So down below is a group file. I'm going to recreate that one. Right now, I'm going to open this one. Say next. And under the import survey options, we have a couple of things we need to be aware of here. I have the insert figure objects here and the insert survey points turned off, so the boxes are not checked, because I don't want to insert anything into this drawing, since this is just a generic drawing. And I want to set the coordinate system right here. Again, I choose USA, Florida, North Zone projection, or if you noticed before, I can type in FL83-NF and use that one. Once the projection is chosen, just simply say finish, and it'll import the survey points, and then it'll insert the plan features, which are the figures. And under the database, you'll see an import event, and you'll see figures, figure groups, which comes with a default all survey chains that were in the survey in the XML that was imported. And you'll also see survey point groups and all the survey points. So right now, these are the default groups that come along with the survey database. Note that this is a Land XML 1.2 file that was imported, and that creates our survey database. I'm going to go show you what it looks like now when it's open. Under the Windows Explorer, 41348515201, and under the survey folder, this is the database that I just created, and you see the survey.sdbx file right there, and the survey.sdxx file that was created. And it also creates a log file and has a couple other files that are open only when the survey base is open for edit. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about figures and survey point groups. It's important to understand that you can manually create figure groups and survey point groups. When you create a figure group, you simply right-click on figure group, say New, and the new figure group dialog box will open. Civil 3D has accommodated the FDOT zones that are created by EFB and also are used by Casey. The way Civil 3D has accommodated these zones, they do it under the site category. So what you see right here is zone 1, all along here. So I'm going to sort these figures by these zones by number and go down and choose zone 2, which is a bridge on that project. So I'll continue down until I get to zone 2. I'm going to select all the zone 2s. If I hold my shift down and select, that'll select them all. I'll go up to add to group and right click and say edit. Say yes down here, and that will check all the boxes at once. I need to give the figure group a name, so I'm going to call it Bridge Chains. And I'm going to give the figure group a description and zone 2. Normally zone 4 is used for FDOT superstructures and aerial structures in the FDOT standards, but this is an older job that was done a few years back, and at that time zone 2 was used for the bridge aerial structure. So if I say OK, it's going to create the figure group bridge chains. And you notice the little black dot here tells you that it has been populated. Under survey point groups, I can do a similar action. I can say New, and the new survey point dialog box will open. I'm going to give it a name. Call it Bridge Points. I'm going to give it a description. Zone 2. Now note, as we look at the dialog box, there's nowhere along here that mentions zone, any kind of zone. So that's a little bit of a problem. We're going to have to manually create the zone 2 survey points in this group, and we're going to have to do that under the prospector after we insert these points into the drawing. So what you have to do to create bridge points, or to manually create a survey point group and put these bridge points in it, we're going to have to first choose all the points in the entire file. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, highlight, hold the shift down, and select them all. Right click the Add To Group button, say Edit, say Yes, and that will check all the boxes for all the points in the entire file. Say OK. So essentially that's how we create our group. Now I have to show how I can create those zone 2 points. So what I'm going to do is, and note that I'm in a generic drawing right now. The survey database has no direct relation to the file you're in. I purposely only opened a generic drawing to show you that it doesn't matter where you are when you create your survey database. So what I want to do now is I want to create a file and insert the figures, the bridge chains, and the bridge points into that file and show you how to manipulate and query the bridge point survey point group so you'll get only the zone 2 points. So I'm going to go to the FDOT menu bar, say Create File, create file dialog box will open. My project is selected. My discipline is roadway. The file group is survey design files. And I'm going to choose the survey development model right here. The purpose of this particular template is for analyzing and working through your points and your chains before they go to a deliverable. So up here you have your 10 model for your GDTM. You have your drainage model. Here you have your survey of verified utilities and your project network control sheets, topography, your tree survey sheet, and then utilities for existing utilities. But what I'm going to do is create the survey development model, and if you see, as it says, survrd01.dwg. I'm going to create that file and then open it. I can close this, and as you can see, now at the top you see I have the survrd01 file is open. So what I want to do now is go to the Home tab and open up another couple of tabs in Tool Space. This first tab I'm going to open is the Prospector. Prospector is where we will view point groups, and then the figures are down under the survey figures. Right now this file is empty. The first thing I want to do in this file is set the projection. So I'm going to open the survey settings right here, and I've got a third tab open. Going to minimize the generic drawing, and I'm looking at the survrd01 file. I'm going to edit the drawing settings, set them to FL83-NF, which is NAD 83 Florida State Plane North Zone US foot. Say OK. And once you've set the zone, you want to be sure and save. So I'm going to go back to the survey tab, and in order to see these figure groups in the file, I'm going to insert them. That will also simultaneously put the figure group, or put the point group, into the prospector. It'll also show all the figures. So first thing I'm going to do is go to the bridge chains and right click, say insert to drawing, and there's the bridge for zone. Those are all the points, all the bridge chains that were in zone 2. Now I'm going to go down to the survey point group and right click and say insert to drawing. This is going to insert all the points in the entire file into this drawing. And here they are. If I zoom back in, you'll see where the bridge is. At this point, I want to show you a little bit about labeling before I go on to query the Zone 2 point groups. The way Civil 3D labels is they have an object, and they label that object with a style. So first of all, if you see the shield with the exclamation mark, it means it needs to be updated. So I'm going to go ahead and update that. And if you note, now I have in the point groups in the prospector, make sure you know you're in the prospector tab. I have under point groups, I have bridge points, and then no display, which tells Civil 3D to show nothing, and then all points, which tells it to show all points. The order of these groups defines the priority of how it is displayed on the screen. I'm going to give you an example of that. First, what I want to do is go into the bridge points and right click and show the properties. And under information, under the point label style, I'm going to turn these to a new style, and that style is no display, and say OK. Now note what happened was all of the points that were not featured, that don't have features, a specific feature, were turned off because they are not defined in the description keys. So if I look under settings, and I go to points and look at description keys, you have FDOT survey description keys for all the points. Now if I say, look at the edit those keys, you can see a point label style has been assigned to every point feature. In this case, the survey display all 0.5 text. Okay. The description keys have precedent over all labeling in the Civil 3D file. So anything that gets inserted using the description key is considered first and has priority. The point groups are next. To show you what I mean is I can right click on these properties and change the order of the groups. So if I move no display to the top, say apply, OK, it's going to turn off all points. So if I go back to the properties again, I'm going to move the bridge points back to the top and say OK, and all the points in the file come back on. I'm going to right click the bridge points, say properties. In order to override the description keys, you go over to the override tab right here. So I'm going to override the point label style of the description keys, and I'm going to change that. I could make it no display, but I want to change it to something else just to show you there's a difference. I'm going to change it to description only. Say OK. Now what you're going to see is only the description has shown up. It's actually set to a different layer. That's why the color difference. So layer and label styles can be controlled from the point groups. So all labeling of those objects are controlled from the point group. So you can see that the point features that have a description are being shown. If I move all points to the top, it's going to show every point in the file with the label set that's shown under all points. So the order of these point groups for labeling purpose is critical. I'm going to put the bridge back to the top and move the no display just under that, so only the bridge points and their style will show. Now I'm going to show you how to create a query that will show only the zone 2 points. First I'm going to actually set the labels back to similar to what they were. I think the no display was taken. I'm going to take the override off, say OK. And the labeling is back the way it originally was. So here's how you set up a query. You go to the same properties box and you look under here, is under Query Builder right here. To create a new query, you have to check the Modify Query box, and down what you have is you already have a query, and that's point number equal a range of points. Now these are the points, the actual point numbers, the range of point numbers in this file. They were automatically created by Autodesk. I didn't give them a set of numbers. they actually were created when I inserted them into the file. And it's a consecutive range. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right underneath to the next row and say insert a row. And I want an operator because I want all the points in the file, and so I use the and as an operator. Under the name, I want all points that are in the file and points with a zone number that are equal to zone 2. So I'll put zone 2 as a value and say OK. And what you're going to see is nothing's happened till you actually regenerate. So I'm going to regenerate this file. Now only the zone 2 points are shown along with the zone 2 chains. And that's how you build you manually build a point group. As I said before, the figures were inserted also, so if you look under survey and look under figures, you'll see each figure that was inserted into the file. I'm going to save this file. And I'm going to create a new database. First I need to go over to my Casey file, my Casey projects. Go into my name, create job, and I want to get rid of an earlier file that I created because I'm going to recreate this grouped XML file. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use the Land XML Grouper to achieve the same thing. I thought it was important that you know how to manually do this because in some cases the Land XML Grouper is not going to cover exactly what your needs are, so you need to know how to manually create a figure group and how to manually create a point group. And that's what we just went over. So if you go to the FDOT menu bar right up here and you go to Land XML Grouper right here and open that file, the Land XML Grouper dialog box is going to open. Pull it down here where you see it and expand it a little bit. Note it has a file where you can import and save. It has filters and it has a help. I want to show you the help file. If you click on the Group Maker PDF, it actually shows you in detail how to build your group and how to group your Land XML files. Okay? If you have any questions, Ray Lamoureux created this. It's a very good application. If he can answer any questions, or you can contact the ECSO or Surveying and Mapping. Close the help file, show you what we have here. These are the preset groups. These can be unlocked and locked. So if you right click and say and uncheck it, it's actually unlocked at this point. You can see that the topo chains have been checked, the ones that actually apply, which are pretty much all of these. We'll lock that one. I want to show you the topo points. And then your drainage change, your drainage points, utility chains, utility points, Different codes are checked depending on what applies, and then under the GTTMRD chains, you note that a different attribute has been checked. It's the ground attribute. So anything that's brought in that has a ground attribute will be grouped under the GTTMRD chains. Same thing with the GTTMRD points. Anything with a ground attribute will be grouped under the GTTMRD points. The bridge is set to zone 2. The chains are set to zone 2, and the points are also set to zone 2. So this is kind of how the Land XML Grouper works. It can be edited just by unlocking it and changing, clicking, or checking and unchecking these boxes. In order to group a Land XML file, I'm going to open a file. It's the previous one that I brought in just a little while ago, the 4134851.xml file. I will say open. And note what it does down in the bottom. It shows you what is actually in that file. In this case, survey points are in it, and survey chains are in it. Now you can group these one at a time. You can create a grouped Land XML individually. So I could create a different Land XML for the chains, or just for the chains for the topo file, or I could create them one at a time, or just in sets of 3 or 4, however I want to do it. But what we found is the most efficient way to do this is to group them all together at once. What this does is it keeps you from bringing these XML files in individually and overriding points that you may not want to override, or possibly missing points that didn't meet that criteria. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold my shift down and highlight all of the groups. I'm going to right click and say create groups. So if you notice what has happened, expand this a little bit so you can see it. It's created these groups right here down at the bottom. You can go through and review these groups. Once you create it, you can say save as, and I'm going to save it as 4134851-group.xml. Say save. Once I've saved this group, I can close the Land XML Group Maker. I'm going to say no. I'm not going to save any changes that I may have made. You can say yes and save them. In this case, I'm going to say no. So now what I have is a Land XML group file that I need to make a new survey database out of. But first I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to create a new survey file. I'm going to save this one and create a new one. I'm going to choose the survey development model right here. It'll be serve RD02. So create file. Say open. I can close this box. So you see I've got the serve RD02.dwg created. I want to go to the settings dialog box right here, the settings tab in the tool space, I'm sorry, and say right click, edit drawing settings. So this is a new file, so I need to set the projection FL83-NF. Okay, and I want to save this file. Say save. Now what I want to do is I'm going to close this survey database and I'm going to create a new one. First I'm going to go up here to the survey user settings, and instead of using the FDOT 2014 database settings, I'm going to actually preset the projection to FDOT US NAD 83 North and say OK. So the database is created, the settings are set, so I need to create a new local survey database. I still have the same set working folder, so I'm just going to say new local survey database. I'm going to call this one 4134851-grouped, but you can name it anything you want. And you see it's highlighted, which means it's open for editing. If I look at the edit survey database settings now, you'll see the coordinate zone is already set. So any new survey database that you open and create with this settings will have the preset zone. Say OK. Now I'm ready to import my Land XML grouped file. So I'm going to import. This time I'm going to go straight to the Import Survey Land XML selection, and under my KC database I have the 4134851 I just created a few moments ago with the Land XML Grouper, and I'm going to select that one, say open, and the Import Survey Land XML dialog box opens. I need to set the zones. And the reason you set these zones for incoming data is in case it's on a different projection, it can automatically do the math to move those points into the current projection of your database. It's a good habit to be in to always set the zones and the selections. I've got the projection set, the coordinate system set here. And I want you to notice also I have the insert figure objects are still unselected here and here. So the figure and the survey points are not selected because I don't want to insert them yet. I want to insert them by group. I'm going to say OK. And the import survey points and import survey plan features, which are the figures, are imported into the survey database, and you can see it under import events right here. Now here's the difference. These point and figure groups have already been grouped by the Land XML Grouper. So I want you to see what you have. We have bridge DTM chains, we have the drainage chains, the DTM chains, control survey and right-of-way, the Topo RW chains. We also have all the survey chains as a group. That's the default group. And then we have Topo chains and utility chains. Under the survey point groups, we have bridge DTM chains. We have the DTM points for the ground, right-of-way control survey, right-of-way control topo, which is the Topo RW, and then the Topo RD and the utility points. Notice you don't have any drainage points. There's a drainage chains, but there are no drainage points because there were no drainage points in this file. So it only groups and imports what is actually there. So what I want to do now is insert the bridge chains and the bridge points into the file. So I'm going to insert these into this current serve R2 RD02 file, and there's the bridge. But note I can do the same thing here, and I don't have to set a query. These are already grouped by the zone. So if I say insert to drawing, only the zone 2 points have come into the drawing. So it should look identical to the previous one I just created. This works with all of the figure groups and all of the survey point groups. I can save it, and now I'm ready to DTM create a surface for this bridge if I need to. So now I want to show you one other thing. I want to show you how to create a Topo RD deliverable and what happens when you bring those figures into the Topo RD. So I'm going to go into the Create File, and this time instead of choosing the Survey Develop Model, I'm going to go down here and choose the Topography Existing, which is a Topo RD01 in the output right down here. So I'm going to create this file, and then I'm going to open it right here and create a new file called Topo RD01. I can close the Create File dialog box, and remember to set the projection of any new file you create. So I'm going to go up in the Settings tab right here and go to the Edit Drawing Settings, FL 83-NF, say OK, and don't forget to save. So now we're ready to insert the Topo RD points and Topo RD chains into this file. So we go down to the Survey tab, and I'm going to go to the Topo RD points and say Insert into the drawing. So it inserted all the Topo RD points. We go to Figure Groups and insert the Topo RD chains. Insert into the drawing. And notice what you have here. There's a large circle, a couple large circles that were created. And what this is the difference between the way Casey perceives the point and curve attributes of a chain and the way Civil 3D also displays those same attributes. These point and curve attributes are created in EFB and are used in Casey for drawing curves, and especially along, like for instance, in a medium or where you have a slight curve and you want to show the curve around. That's what those are. They're not coordinates points, they're geometry attributes. And these are very easy to fix. You're going to see this in Civil 3D, very typical in a project, and you're going to also see this in the Bentley side. It does exactly the same thing. I'm going to right click on the figure and look down here under Survey, Edit Survey, Figure Properties. It's going to bring up the Figure Properties dialog box. And what we've seen is that when you have a set of curves and there's a point right in the middle, that's usually the problem area. And the way it actually displays those geometry attributes. And so I'm going to just make those curve and say OK. And that's going to take care of the large circle. Do the same thing to this slope chain right here. And I'm going to edit the survey figure properties. And there's only one curve in that particular set of chains, and I'm going to change that to point. Remember, this is just a geometry feature that affects the display. That's all that does. Say OK. So now I have the Topo RD file. If I want to see it, annotate it to a different scale, I'll say to 100 scale, for instance. You're going to see the custom line styles are shown, the tree lines, the embankments, the pavement, the guardrails along the bridge. And if I quick check it, it should say compliance is 100%. So the Topo RD file has been created. And that concludes my presentation.